Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to MNE203 session about sky migration. This session is a narrative about how to face the challenge of the transformation. We know that the broadcast industry is a mission-critical environment, and we are so focused to warranty the business continuity that there is no time left to experiment and innovate. Moreover, we need to be thoughtful about where and how invest our money. So, how can we be more agile? Innovate faster, reducing the risk, and get ready for the next revolution. My name is Simone D'Antone, and I'm Business Developer Leader for Broadcast in AWS. And today, I'll walk you through the well-architected review with a lens on how it can be used in the media and entertainment industry. Then you will hear a story from Sky about not only how they solved those problems, but most important, how they took advantage of the situation to reinvent their business. And at the end, there will be time for a deep dive session on some specific topic. I'm pretty sure you're already aware of what the well-architected framework is, but for who is not familiar, the well-architected is basically a collection of guidelines, design principles, and architectural best practices for designing and running workload in the cloud. The well-architected do not belong to any specific vertical. Actually, it can be used across any workloads on any industries. I will not dive deep each section, explain the principles within, but I rather prefer to give you some example about how it can be adopted on some specific M&E use cases. As you can see, the well-architected consists of 6 main pillars, the first of which is operational excellence. One of the mantra of the broadcast industry I heard several times is, if it's working, do not touch, especially during the weekend. That's because making changes was difficult and risky, and we tend to avoid to touch a production system and push changes into large releases once in a while. But in the cloud, constraints of a traditional environment are removed, and you can use the design principles of the operational excellence pillar to run your infrastructure as a code and make all changes as a code, till the point when you can run infrastructure, use it, and destroy when it's no longer needed. Try to think about a production gallery for any given sport. Not only you can spin up your environment, operate it, and spin down when it's no longer needed, but you can also create different templates depending on the complexity of the event itself. So for example, you can have a small event with just 4 cameras, small mixer, and no graphics, and another template with 40 cameras, crazy graphics, and all the bells and whistles you need. And those templates are not rigid. They can be refined the next time based on lessons learned or last-minute requests, simply changing a few lines of codes. Security is without question the most important pillar and #1 priority for AWS. But let's be honest, in the broadcast industry, we never really put attention about how to secure access or signal streams. Raise the hand who never used admin password to log in. Yeah, password 123, way more better. Yeah. It's the same for a signal link. It was essentially a coax cable connected point to point. It's important to realize that we can be more agile now, and that connection is no longer point-point, but it is multi-point and multi-access. Therefore, not only we should protect the signal in transit every single time, but we should also think about who and how can consume that stream. It's actually very easy. And what we've seen is that once adopted, it becomes muscle memory, till the point that every engineer, architect, or even manager is now paying attention about how to secure the streams or the file as a natural process. Reliability is by far my most favorite pillar. We are used to design fully redundant solutions, usually replicating our infrastructure twice with 2 complete and independent chains, main and backup. And on top of that, a disaster recovery somewhere ready to go on air. And that's because, as I love to say, 1 frame lost is just lost, and every frame matters. The concept of retransmitting a frame during a live event, like if it was an IP packet, doesn't apply for broadcast. Every frame matters. And a frame, depending on the standard, is essentially alive for 16 milliseconds. So it's clear that our infrastructure must be designed accordingly. And when, not if, when a problem happens, it must react quickly with no frame loss. In fact, if there is something we know about the technology, is that it fails. But now we can unlock new ways to manage the failure with faster and more efficient recovery mechanisms, such as chaos engineering techniques. Also, we can have a better granular approach to different business needs. And this is linked to the next pillar, cost optimization. Think about a linear channel. If you're a broadcaster, most likely your lineup is made by premium channel, content channel with just movies and TV series, and some tier 2 and tier 3 channels. Let's take, for example, kids channel, which, by the way, I consider to be mission critical, because during the day, we want our little devils to stay quiet for a while. But in the night, when the cutie monsters are supposed to be asleep, do we really need main backup DR strategy configured active all the time? Maybe for some of this channel, we can turn off the DR and the backup and keep a cold standby infrastructure ready to go on air when a problem happens. Your asset is still protected. It just takes a couple of minutes to go back on air. But perhaps it fits the SLA for that kind of channel. Plus, you can increase your resiliency with no additional cost, having infinite replica in cold standby ready to be spun up without paying for an active replica, which is doing nothing. But why do we keep talking about main backup DR if we can have an infrastructure serverless and distributed? What do I mean by serverless? Let's say you need a way to manage your media assets, and most likely you need a database. It doesn't mean you need to spend time to install, maintain, and patch the DB engine. What you need is populate entries in a meaningful way. That's what serverless means. You can stay focused on the application layer while the infrastructure underneath is totally managed on your behalf. And distributed, think about the previous example of the production gallery. But this time, imagine that each component is based on node independent from each other. So you can have one component for the mixer, another one for the graphics, another one for the audio, and you can connect those pieces like Lego bricks in minutes, staying focused on the workflow, creating your custom pipeline without taking care of the infrastructure. On top of that, you can now experiment more often because it's very simple to replace a single component without affecting the entire chain. Last year, we introduced the new pillar about sustainability, and Amazon as a whole is committed to be powered 100% by renewable energy by 2025. I think the broadcast industry can do a lot in these regards. The most obvious example is about a remote production. Think about a traditional OB van, a truck sent on the location of the event to produce. And think about all the crew that must travel on the same location as well. Remote production is now real. And lots of venues are connected. So what you can do is just send a small crew on site, let's say cameramen and sound engineers, but you can shift the entire production in the cloud, keeping all the other operators, such as director, mixer, commentary, graphics, in their houses without compromising the production quality. They can still work like they were sitting close to each other, optimizing their time, as they can now produce more events back-to-back without wasting time traveling around, with also a huge direct impact on Scope 1 emission on the environment. That was a quick overview about how the well-architected framework can help media companies like yours to innovate faster. But now, let's listen what Sky have done and how they implemented those principles to solve a real-life problem and to evolve and transform their business. Because sometimes problems can be opportunities. Please join me welcome Sky's Group Director of Content, Broadcast, and Platform Engineer, Mr. Dave Travis.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. I'm the guy that has probably one of the longest job titles in the industry, and clearly I need to work on trying to make that a bit more efficient. So we're going to I'm going to take you on a bit of a journey, walk you through where we started, where we're going, talk to you about what we've done previously, and then what's really changing the way we work and innovating. So I'll talk about our journey so far, I'll talk about our challenges, I'll talk about our successes, and things that we learned along the way. So 3 years ago, we established a part of Sky called CT&I, Content, Technology and Innovation. And we are a operations and engineering organization that facilitates workloads for our internal stakeholders. Sky News, Sky Sports, Sky Creative, our global OTT organization. And we have the end-to-end. So we are a horizontal organization. We came together as a group, so that combined UK, Germany, and Italy, which you'll hear about is how we've evolved. So we're about 2,700 people today, and we have an engineering organization of about 650 people. So I'm going to give you a little sizzle reel of what CT&I is all about.
CT&I. We are content. Our vision is to make your TV and all platforms come alive like never before.
Anytime, any place, anywhere, anywhere.
We are innovative and work together hand in hand. With over 2,000 channels and content partners, we are behind the screen for a unique live experience and provide over 300,000 video on demand hours. We are hands-on and always ready to create whatever needed for our platform. We are creative. We are reliable and cover 99.995% uptime. We are unforgettable moments. CT&I. We are content.
So, wind back the clock 3 years ago, we were an organization that had 3 different geographic locations. We had different engineering teams, different operational teams, doing pretty much the same thing, but very differently. So we saw an opportunity to come together as a group organization and try and go on a journey of convergence. And that journey of convergence, well, if you're starting something new, where should you be building your workloads? And we decided that really our focus should be moving to the cloud. So we first started by setting our operating model, and that was all around aligning our organization, getting the structure right, understanding our KPIs, getting organizational symmetry, having the right diversity within your organization, so having shared teams and shared groups. That's not an easy thing to do, but once we got that alignment, we could then build on that to go on the next step and the next step. So then we focused on the transformation piece, and that's the bit we're kind of working on right now, and I'm going to talk about in a bit more detail. And then the third part of our pillar is working on full abstraction. So today, a lot of our organization, as you know, in engineering is you have the hardware and you have the people, and they're very much co-located. And what we really want to do is have a organization that means that they could operate it from anywhere in the world. They could operate it from home, and as we saw from COVID, the life has changed. COVID was an incredible, challenging time for us. But it was actually probably one of the best things that happened to us because we did things in 6 months that typically would take us 3 years. Take remote production. We had a 3-year vision to do remote production. We did it in 6 months. We were doing Premier League football with having 40 feeds coming in from every football stadium. We do cricket with 60 feeds. And we took one of our studio floors, a bit of space like this, and we crammed and we built a load of galleries overnight. So it was a really interesting experience for us. But that showed the art of the possible, what you can do when you bring everybody together and set them on an objective to go on the journey. So this was our technology environment. So multiple environments in every country. We had astronomically long lead times. So launch a channel in Sky. It's a complex organization. We were talking somewhere between 6 to 10 months of time. And it would probably take 60 people as involvements to make that happen. We were incredibly resource hungry. We had all of these different locations and no consistency, no ability to scale. Our costs were just through the roof. We had an aging estate. Sky's been a very incredibly successful organization, but it's organically grown. And so we were hitting like a critical refresh stage. And we were burning carbon like it was going out of fashion. We were sending people all over the world, doing OB trucks, driving these big vehicles around. Then we were losing them for weeks at a time because they're in Singapore. So, and then we just had no ability to scale at all. So everything was just slow, mundane. I think our stakeholders looked at us like, oh, it's that slow organization. So we decided to set a vision of where we wanted to go and take our people on that journey. And this is what we were targeting. The North Star for us was to automate and rapidly deploy services at speed. So go from 10 months, and I'll talk about how we are deploying in 4 minutes. So that, in its own right, is a massive efficiency gain, and our stakeholders really then appreciated that we can launch those services and we can innovate quicker. We centralized all of our capabilities and looked at how we can abstract all of the functions, storage databases, data, having data mesh, data mobility, having the ability to have a consolidated operational footprint, offer the business a lower total cost of ownership, and that's quite critical really when you go on the journey and you're trying to sell it to the finance organization who just see a load of OPEX, and we'll cover a bit more about that in a little while. And working for an organization like Comcast, we don't get audited, we get continuously audited. It's like non-stop. So if I look in a lot of our environments, our Playout environment had like 100 security failures and vulnerabilities identified. And back then, it's that old, we can't touch it. A little bit of what Simone was saying earlier, we have to leave it alone, it's precious. But equally, the organization didn't want to take the risk on security, so managing that was challenging. So targeting an ultra-secure model was part of the vision, reducing our carbon footprint, and then having the ability to scale up and down resources on demand. So that was the vision of what we wanted to do. And within our ecosystem, this is kind of like the tech stack in my area. We decided, we initially started doing things in the cloud, but before I joined, there was a little bit of we were doing things, but we weren't really doing it correctly. We were rushing at it. We were going too quick. We'd launch a service in the cloud and have no way of managing it. So we then took a big step back and said, we need to focus on the foundational components first and get that absolutely right. So we need to focus around our deployment. What's our deployment strategy? How will we manage that sort of ecosystem so we can continuously deploy at speed and we can do all the security patching and everything on a daily basis? We wanted to have a storage strategy. So we wanted to have a federated global namespace that could talk to systems in the cloud, S3, Glacier, but equally talk to all of our systems on-prem. And then have a data strategy that could take us on that journey. So once we built these foundations, we could integrate our teams to provide them full autonomy to build these environments that you see here. Now, not all of them are suitable for the cloud. You can't take a studio physical facility and put that in the cloud. But you can take all of the hardware, the traditional hardware, and strive for software. And through perseverance, we really pushed and had that desire to find and select vendors that could go on the journey with us and partner. And so we now have a lot of our post-production and editing running in the cloud. We have cloud production. I'm going to talk about that. It's a case study I'm going to go through. But we have a cloud production environment which can do live sports and live news. We have 120 channels running in Playout in the cloud. We are doing video encoding, stat muxing in the cloud. And so we're starting to see an evolution where 50% of our workloads are now in the cloud, and our target is to try and get to 100% over the next 5 years. So Sky also has a big commitment to sustainability. We want to be carbon neutral by 2030. So everything that we do with the cloud has really helped and enabled us to go on that journey. We've done things like we ran our first carbon neutral football game in partnership with the Premier League. And all of these things are just massively helping the environment and helping us reach that target. So this is the journey that we've been on and how it started. We had a fire to one of our facilities in Rome in 2019. The facility burnt to the entire ground. It was gone. We have had COVID. We have had Brexit. We had the Queen pass away. It's been an interesting environment to work, and throughout all of this, our news organisation has to continue, and our sports have to continue, and we have to carry on pleasing our customers. So we started with the business transformation. We established the organisation. We brought the organisation together and converged it. We set the model of what we wanted to achieve, and the vision of what you're working towards brought the alignment and everybody to work towards that common goal. And then we focused on how we could develop and improve the way we work, which then enabled us to get the engineering components right and set clear engineering principles. What is it we're looking for from our vendors? Do we want them to be cloud native? Because I tell you what, a lot of them are all monolithic lift and shift. That's not what you want. You want to be working in a very much pure software space. So everything in what we were trying to achieve is we would accept feature gaps to ensure that we got the right deployment architecture. And that has massively benefited us with what I'll talk about in a minute. So far, we have our content supply chain is fully in the cloud. We have 500 content partners. We have hundreds of petabytes of storage. We manage, I think it's like 250,000 assets a year. And so that's all running. We partner with our good partners who are in the room, SDVI. And that's been incredibly successful. And that has then led us to then look at other parts of our ecosystem. And as you can see here at the bottom, we started doing cloud production. Cloud production started off with some lower tier sports. And then we had the opportunity to do COP26 last year. And the news organization came to us and said, we want to have a dedicated channel. It's in Scotland. Sky are one of the main sponsors. How can we get behind this? Typically, that would have been 10 months, a few £1 million. We'll get you on air. But we didn't have that time. So we used our cloud production environment. We deployed all of the system, fully remote production in the cloud in weeks, and saved, we had a factor of 10 carbon reduction in fossils. And the entire economics was like just dropped off a cliff. It was just like, ta-da, here you're going to have one of these. And then we are currently in the process of building a new production content management system in partnership with redesign that will host all our production for all our sports. And then in long term, we have looked to try and take that for our newsroom systems. We have just successfully migrated the 120 channels that I was talking about. And we launch our first StatMux in the cloud in January. So it's been an incredible journey, and we're really looking forward to where we're going into the future. But it all comes with a lot of challenges. And I think these challenges are common to probably most people in the room. There is not a talent shortage in the UK or Italy in Germany. There is a global talent shortage, which is incredibly difficult to address. So we have to take our workforce and re-skill them and go on that journey, which takes time. And it's all part of that big consideration with our transformation journey. We have a lack of capacity. I use the analogy working at Sky is like bombing down the motorway at 100 miles an hour while changing the paint on the car and the wheels and everything. But on top of that, you've got to transform. So that's a real challenge, and especially with our external stakeholders. They could take my entire team and fill up my roadmap exclusively just on the old tech. So that's a real problem for us. The culture of what you're trying to do. Broadcast engineers like to sit down, assess, take their time, very calculated, and that fundamentally meant that the speed you move at is quite slow. So we have to get to this point of we want to learn fast, we want to fail fast. So the more we fail, the more we can learn, the more we adapt and pivot and go onto that journey. We had, and still do, a vast amount of tech debt, but we see 75% of our tech debt will be eroded by the transformation we're doing into the cloud. So step by step, that's going to be eroded, and it means that we don't have to invest large sums of capex in hardware, which I have for 5 years, and then I have to throw away and install over and over and over. That will just go away because we'll be in a continuous environment. Cloud native, I said it before, vendors in our industry just are struggling to change, and that's because they have the challenges of their hardware business and they don't have enough funding to invest in the software business. And I see endless evidence of how this is challenging for them. So you have to identify the right partners, and some of them may even be startups and take a risk because they're better than the traditional vendors that have typically been out there. And then FinOps is another challenge because when you start doing millions and millions and millions of dollars in the cloud, typically the finance team come along and start asking you why you're doing it and what you're doing it and how can you do it cheaper. So you have to get right behind that to have the right level of intelligence to manage those workloads and provide educated information back to those commercial parts of the business. So I'm going to get into a few case studies. So this is our cloud production environment. We are working on a sort of take the lower value tier sports we have today, the lower value rights, take them on the journey into the cloud, and then as we learn and adapt, our target is that we can do our highest valuable assets like Premier League, Champions League, NFL, all in the cloud, ultimately. We're not there yet because audio is an utter nightmare. There is not one single solution out there that we can really identify to do audio at the scale that we need it. But, we are getting there slowly and slowly. So we have partnered and created an ecosystem. We at Sky like to have best of breed technology, and we also want to have in our live environments like what we have in the content supply chain. You want to have a federated approach so you can interchange products very quickly as new things come on. So we're working with people like Viz. We work with LiveView, Now that sounds a bit weird. Live view, why are you working live view? Well, we decided that actually we can break apart how we do replay and how we do live, because those two don't need to be synchronized with each other. So we have stressed and tested and tried different models to try and get the right architecture. The dream for us is to go camera head to the cloud, everything there. But again, connectivity is not sufficient in all locations. Formats are very inconsistent. And again, some of the technology in these locations are restricted. So this is where we're at today. And this is what we've produced so far. So we've got women's netball running on the platform. We've been doing some women's soccer on our platform. And as I was talking about earlier, what we did with COP26 was just like a monumental moment for us, where we realized this actually is exactly the same as the newsroom we have on the ground. And there is no difference with what we had. So we are going through the journey of doing more and more and more. And then we started doing red button services. So our interactive services we have today, you have the ability to have different holes for a golf, or you can have you can switch to onboard. That was just other galleries we had that were doing exactly the same. So we took the decision to move all of those workflows into the cloud, because it's not the first thing it's not the premium output, it's your secondary output. And that's been incredibly successful and proven that, again, we can go further with what we're doing in the cloud. So then we went on to, we've been on the journey of Playout. And Playout, a lot of people have been doing this, right, and it's evolving. But we had a huge amount of end of life. I was quite surprised when I joined the organization that we were like 2 generations behind in terms of Playout. So we want to do a massive generation jump to something new. And we had Playout, I think it was on 6 different locations. So again, there was a wonderful opportunity to bring all of those teams together and converge and consolidate. So we realized, though, that we don't have to have, not one size fits all. And we decided that the 200 channels we have in our portfolio of ones that we produce ourselves, we came up with this model of a content TV and event TV. So content TV is quite lightweight. It's mostly playing out file-based content. It has some live, not much, and we can have an ops-light model. So all of those services that you see here now running in the cloud, and it's been game-changing for us. We've now gone from 6 sites to having 2 teams that are load balanced in 2 markets, and all the tech is just virtual now. So that's a really big step. We're then working on Event TV now, which is how we do very sophisticated, very interactive Playout, where we're working with the news team continuously, or we're working with the galleries and on the production side. So that's what you'd see here for Sky Sports and Sky News. That's been challenging because, again, most of the vendors out in the industry are not giving us what we require. They don't meet our engineering principles. So we are now reevaluating. We went on a journey, we started, we moved all of our disaster recovery for Italy into the cloud because we had to outsource it because the facility burned down. We have migrated it with a partner now, but we've stopped and said, we don't think we can continue on that journey. So we are now reevaluating the software provider there, and we are either looking at partnering with 1 or 2 other organizations, or we may even well develop with some gaming technology to take us on that journey. So this is what the architecture looks for our Playout environment. Everything we do is active-active. The partner that we have that we use for Content TV is BC Next, which is a small company, 9 people, I think, are in the organization. They are the best partner I've ever worked with. They deploy at speed, they get the industry, they understand what we were working towards. And so now we're doing, I think Comcast was saying, we had a Comcast audit, you like the example now of what you should be doing from a security perspective. Because all our pipelines and the way we deploy is security by design, and we're just doing regular daily updates, and it's good. We don't have 24/7 engineering teams anymore. If something breaks, the guys, it just carries on running. They'll come in on Monday and fix it. And so it's been a real game changer and a shift to the way we execute and manage our workloads. And then the final case study that I wanted to share with you today, and please feel free, if anyone's got questions about this, grab me afterwards. I'm happy to talk in more detail. But we, as an organization, have 3 DTH, direct-to-home satellite platforms, which was predominantly, it's all hardware-based, loads of data centers, loads of racks of encoders and stat mucks and things. We would, again, distributed over multiple sites. And we've got 6 uplink facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So again, similar problems that you see I've shared from other slides. And we then decided that we really want to build a software architecture for encoding video. So this is what we have built, and this is the ability to take content from the on-prem into the cloud, or take content from our cloud Playout platform into the software-defined encoding platform, or from our cloud production into it. So you start seeing how our ecosystem then all starts going cloud, 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 and we can get then way more efficiencies. So we built, again, active architecture. In this space, we selected 3 vendors that meet our engineering principle and focused on building an orchestration layer that allows us to interchange the products underneath, which then means suddenly our software-defined encoding platform becomes like a content supply platform. Today, we work with Elemental. We also work with Telestream and those guys in the content supply. Well, then we can start doing the same thing on our video encoding technology. So we can interchange products and change and flex so we can be really quick and agile, which has been a phenomenal game changer for the way we run our organization. So this is the roadmap for next year in terms of migration. So next month, we'll be launching some German services in the cloud. We then, through all of next year, will be migrating all of the services you see listed. So then we'll have hundreds of channels all running workloads in the cloud with the full flexibility, the benefits of reliability, which really sort of honed into what Simone shared with us earlier around the AWS framework. So it's been, I think this really summarizes where we got overall. We've just consolidated loads of facilities into sort of an A and B operation. We've had huge amounts of gains with the way we deploy and launch services. We've seen a massive reduction in our carbon footprint. And that's predominantly not because the cloud has a magic wand that allows you to, because it's ultimately hardware just somewhere else, right? But it's because we don't have to build the lowest common denominator. We can literally, for one sport, we only need this, this, and this. But then for another sport, it may be 20 different services. But we only use it for like the hour, the 2 hour, the 3 hour, and then we turn it off. In our on-prem facilities, we've got thousands of racks of equipment, which pretty much is only used for like 2 or 3 times a week for like a few hours. But the rest of the time, we never turn it off because you don't want to touch it. You don't want to leave it alone because it will break. We don't have that anymore. So that's where the efficiencies gains come. We've improved our quality because we now have consistency the way we architect. Everything's active, and we can do all the relevant movement of workloads and things to keep us flexible. We now have very mature security posture, doing continuous patching and things like that. And we can then, we're looking at, we use preventative maintenance, so we can analyze data to understand that things will go wrong before they go wrong. And again, it's been an incredible journey. I think somebody asked me yesterday somebody asked me this morning, when do you think you'll be at full saturation? We've got a long way to go, but we think that it's incredibly exciting. We're very proud of what our teams have done and the talent and the way they got behind this. So I think that was the end of just an overview of what we've done, and Simone's going to come up, and I think we're going to have a further chat.
Yeah. I'm here to give you a hard time.
I hope not.
So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure, being exposed to such an inspiring vision, and I hope the audience is happy as much as I am. I took the liberty to write down some questions, which I hope reflects the audience thought as well. And the first will be about the principle of the transformation. You mentioned about leadership principles, and we know that in order to create this huge transformation, you need to set your North Star. Can you tell us a little bit more about how and where are these principles?
Yeah, the principles always are evolving, but we've wanted to foster a culture of innovation. And we're sharing it here actually. It's really focusing on those foundational things always, and making sure that the vendors and the people we partner with are reliable and flexible and meet these principles so that we can get the gains. And, everybody can probably read the slides, but, reliability, scalability are incredibly important, the security by design, having the ability to share and leverage resources across the organization, and really channeling in reducing complexity. Because quite often I think sometimes try and overcomplicate what we do. So taking a step back and reimagine the way you manage those workloads to try and work round, because there are lots of challenges with the transformation.
Right.
Like the example I gave around replay, we were trying to synchronize all the cameras on remote production, but then we realized, well, actually, we don't need to. We can break the model apart. And then focusing on thinking cloud, thinking data, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Those are mainly technical transformation, but how did you handle the top-down transformation and include all the C-level into this discussion?
With a challenge. It was, I think the thing that I would say is, and I say to all we have to think commercially. We've got to be thinking that we don't just do this because it's fun. We do it for a reason. We do it for our customers. And so we had to demonstrate the value, and typically that value usually comes down to cents and dollars, right? So we focused on building good TCO business cases that just demonstrated return. Typically, those business cases were more like 6 to 7 years, because you want to include your refresh cycle, right? And you need to also consider that when you have on-prem equipment, you need some engineers there. You need to then provide toilets. You've got kitchen facilities. You must include all of these things because it's false economics if you don't. So yeah, we did a lot of work, and actually that was quite surprising to most engineers because they just say, oh, it's old and we just need to do it over here. Well, that's not the answer that the C-level are looking for.
And talking about economics, feel free to avoid the answer, but how did you handle the shift from massive CapEx to OpEx? I think there is a lot of work internally also to justify, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, we are addicted to CapEx. I think that's common in a lot of our sector. It is challenging. So cloud comes with OpEx. You don't have the luxury of being able to depreciate the assets and things. But we try and offset the OpEx with efficiencies. So if we can make efficiencies in the way we operate, then that can make way for us to fund what we do in the cloud. And then overall, from a cash perspective, it should reduce.
It works. Makes sense. I know that it's always great when plans deliver the expected results, but you mentioned that we learn more about our mistakes. I can talk hours about my mistakes just for the last week, but what kind of mistakes have you done, and what do you learn from these mistakes?
Well, in my previous role, we were on a similar journey actually, and we were very much pushing for software. But we decided to go predominantly on-prem and private cloud and built our own private cloud. That was a horrible lesson to learn, that was not, because you end up with all the same challenges. Yes, you are, maybe it's all COTS and it's all commodity, but managing capacity, managing black boxes is not where we as an engineering organization should be channeling our energy. We should be channeling our energy into adding value to the customer and do discrete offerings and things that have never been done before rather than managing environments and black boxes. Definitely. And that was a big lesson for me, and I think something that hopefully I've offered to Sky. Maybe my other regret was maybe one too many bottles of wine last night, but you know.
Fair enough. What about training and, being confident of what you're doing? Of course, you require training, you require cultural shift, you require a lot of time and effort to study and innovate yourself. How do you think the training helped you in your team?
Well, training is incredibly important. And as I was saying earlier, with the talent shortage, if you don't train, you've really got no people to do the work and take you on that journey. Amazon have been incredibly supportive and provided a lot of training, and then we've been doing a lot of skills assessment, looking at what does our engineer look like in the future, and then how do we get them accredited. So we'd build like this, that's what a perfect one would look like. And then we have this, where are the training gaps, try and identify them, and then try and, over a 3-year period, try and give them the right skills to go on that, for the future.
Right. You mentioned also about, you talked about the partner and some gap in that area, so probably training can apply also on the partner. Which gap do you see in this industry? You clearly mentioned the audio. Is there something else that we can do, or we can try to find some solution for you?
Well, it's the cloud, the lack of vendors that meet our engineering principle is always a big one. Audio is extremely challenging. I think there's still a long way to go with latency, and obviously if we can deliver video and produce video at a lower bit, we can consume less. So obviously there should always be a strive for more optimization in terms of, really we need our vendors to be focusing on serverless and things like that.
The thing that was mentioned before, absolutely, makes sense. And about sustainability, Amazon and Sky have a lot in common. We had just seen that COP26 was a good example, and of course we are working in this direction as well. Can you double down a little bit on sustainability in general, and what's our goal, your vision for the future?
Probably much more than probably what I've said already, but you know, we've got to find a way to be more efficient, and if that's, I think, you know, using vendors that are using renewable energy sources is incredibly important. I think you guys are targeting 24 or 5, something like that. Got quite an ambitious. So it's partnering with people that do focus on sustainability in the way they manufacture, the way that they build, the way they run, trying not to have, you know, lots of people coming into the office. You know, everything helps.
So let's say all the goals must be aligned in terms of innovation, in terms of products, in terms of sustainability. As long as these goals are aligned, we are fine, right?
Well, we hope so, but yeah.
All right. I think we have time for last question, and that comes from my experience, because when I talk with some friends and I describe my job, they think it's all about fun. It's, you know, media entertainment, so it's just fun. I know. It's stressful. I mean,
media and entertainment, eh?
Yeah, they don't understand the complexity to deliver their favorite content in the best possible way. So, but you know what? Ultimately, I think they're right. And I think fortunate to be part of this industry. It's such a dynamic and rich environment. So how much fun is in there from your point of view?
Well, the fun comes from the passion, I think. And when we set the strategy of where we wanted to go, I think then empowering the guys to say, that's what we want to go and do, but you need to fulfill it and find a way to, that was good for them. They then got very passionate, and then everybody has a good time. I mean, they work incredibly hard and overcome a lot of challenges, but the passion that comes through from the team, I think, creates that fun environment. And we spend way too long at work, right? So if it was all boring and not exciting, I certainly wouldn't want to come in, and I don't expect my teams to come in either. So, you know, we've got to embrace and have that passion.
And I think that's the perfect farewell message to conclude this session. So, David, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here. Enjoy the rest of re:Invent.